everyone, welcome back to the channel where we bring the most iconic action stories to life. Today we are diving into a true movie story, The Christmas Chronicles. The Christmas Chronicles is a 2018 American Christmas comedy film directed by Clay Cates from a screenplay by Matt Lieberman. The film stars Russe, Judah Lewis, Darby, Lamar Morris, Kimberly Williams Paisley, and Oliver Hudson. It is the first installment in the Christmas Chronicles film series. The film was produced by 1492 Pictures and Wonder Worldwide and was released on November 22, 2018, on Netflix. The plot follows two children, Kate and Teddy, who notice Santa Claus in their home and jump into his sleigh with his reindeer. However, they accidentally cause the sleigh to crash, and the presents are lost. As Christmas morning approaches, it is up to the children and Santa to save Christmas by correctly delivering all of the presents. The Christmas Chronicles received mixed reviews from critics. A sequel, titled The Christmas Chronicles 2, was released on November 25, 2020, with much of the original cast returning. In December 2018, in Lowell, Massachusetts, widow Claire Pierce struggles to look after her family at Christmas after her firefighter husband Doug died in a fire. Their teenage son Teddy has lost much of his Christmas spirit, while their younger daughter Kate keeps it alive and continues to believe in Santa Claus. On Christmas Eve, Claire is called in to work at the hospital, leaving Teddy to look after Kate. While watching old family Christmas videos, Kate notices an arm appear out of the fireplace and deduces it was Santa. Teddy agrees to help her prove it, on condition she give him the video she recorded of him stealing a car earlier that day. They set up a tripwire and hidden camera, and fall asleep in the living room. After Kate awakens and sees Santa, she and Teddy follow him onto his sleigh to get a closer look. He rides off with the kids in tow, but he and the reindeer are startled when Kate speaks. In the commotion, he loses control of the sleigh, causing it to teleport and crash in Chicago, Illinois after the tow line connecting the sleigh to the reindeer snaps off from excessive stress caused by the evasive maneuvers. On the ground, Santa introduces himself and tells the kids he has to locate his reindeer, hat, and bag of presents, which were lost in the crash. This is in order to resume deliveries and prevent Christmas spirit from declining. They offer to help him to avoid being permanently on the naughty list. Getting no help in a bar and failing to acquire a Porsche 911 by offering the owner a baseball card, they take a red Dodge Challenger that was stolen by the bartender. They locate the reindeer, but encounter police seeking the stolen car. Kate goes after the reindeer while Teddy and Santa distract the police with a car chase, which culminates in Santa's arrest. Teddy reunites with Kate, and together they find Santa's bag. Going inside it to find help, Kate is teleported to the North Pole, where she encounters Santa's elves. They agree to help after discovering that she comes from a long line of true believers. Meanwhile, a gang of thugs grab Teddy and the bag, taking them to their hideout. There, he is saved by Kate and the elves. At the police station, Santa explains his situation to Officer Poveda. When he reveals his knowledge of the officer's wish to reconcile with his ex-wife Lisa, who shares that wish, he is taken aback. However, Poveda still refuses to believe him, and locks him in the holding cell. As the night progresses, however, Poveda notices a higher than usual number of arrests for Christmas Eve, a prediction Santa had warned about if Christmas spirit continued to fall. In an effort to slow the decline, Santa gathers all the inmates to perform Santa Claus is Back in Town, which works with all the officers except Poveda. After receiving a call from Lisa inviting him for coffee in the morning, Poveda is finally convinced and agrees to release Santa. The elves complete repairing Santa's sleigh and give him a spare hat. Realizing there is only 1 hour left to deliver presents, the kids offer their help, with Kate tossing presents to Santa and Teddy driving the sleigh. The plan is successful, with Santa completing his last delivery just before sunrise. Afterwards, Santa takes the kids home before their mother returns. They ask him if they will ever see him again, to which she replies not if he can help it, but will if he ever needs help in the future. Santa gives Teddy his hat as a memento, showing that he did not really need it to move quickly or navigate tight spaces. When Claire returns, they find the living room decorated like their father used to do it. Opening their gifts from Santa, Kate gets the skateboard she asked for, while Teddy gets a magic ornament. When he hangs it, he sees his dad appear in his reflection, and they express pride in each other. Back in the North Pole, Santa reunites with Mrs. Claus. She asks what movie they are going to watch, and he takes out kids' video of their adventure with a smile. Cast: Kurt Russell as Santa Claus/Saint Nick, a magical figure who brings presents for people on Christmas night, when they are asleep. Judah Lewis as Teddy Pierce, a 16-year-old boy and Kate's older brother. He engages in illegal activities after the death of his father. Jesse Gervasi as 3-year-old Teddy Pierce. David Colesmith as 5-year-old Teddy Pierce. Jack Bona as 8 to 10-year-old Teddy Pierce. Darby Camp as Kate Pierce, an 11-year-old girl who is Teddy's younger sister. Kate has faith in Santa and decides to find Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve. Kaitlyn Adrie as 3 to 5-year-old Kate Pierce. Lamorne Morris as Officer Mikey Jameson, a police officer who lives in Chicago, Illinois. Kimberly Williams Paisley as Claire Pierce, Teddy's and Kate's widowed mother. She is a nurse at a hospital in Lowell, Massachusetts. Oliver Hudson as Doug Pierce, Teddy and Kate's late father and Claire's husband. He was a firefighter who died in a fire. Martin Roach as Officer Dave Poveda, a police officer who lives in Chicago, Illinois who does not remember Santa Claus. Bella Lovell as Wendy, a hostess at a restaurant and aspiring fashion designer. Tony Napo as Charlie Plummer, an ex-con bartender. Stephen Van Zandt as Wolfie, an inmate who formerly wanted to be a musician. Mark Rabler as Dusty, another inmate who also formerly wanted to be a musician. Jeff Teravainen as Vincent, a villain. Development for what would become the Christmas Chronicles began in June 2013, when it was announced Chris Columbus 1492 Pictures had acquired a found-footage spec script titled 1224 written by Matt Lieberman and based on a story by Lieberman and David Guggenheim wherein two brothers set out to prove that Santa Claus is real, using their home video camera and inadvertently cause Santa's sleigh to crash after stowing away with the brothers trying to work together to save Christmas, too. In December 2017, it was reported that Kurt Russell would star as Santa Claus in the film for Netflix, free, later given the title The Christmas Chronicles. Principal photography began in January 2018 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. 3. The film was set in Lowell, Massachusetts, and Chicago, Illinois. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 68% based on 59 reviews, with an average rating of 6 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, "Viewers seeking a fresh holiday view in auction, or those simply in the mood for Santa Kurt Russell, should find The Christmas Chronicles well worth the Yuletide stream." 7. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 52 out of 100, based on 10 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. 8. Melanie McFarland of Salon said, "The film's no great shakes, but Russell's star power in The Christmas Chronicles is a gift anyone should be happy to claim." 9. Charles Bramesco of the AV Club wrote, "The film doesn't know how to get out of its own way and foreground what's working, namely the dynamo of screen presence placed more prominently in the advertising than the feature itself." 10. Writing for Vox magazine, Jenna Allen said, "Above all, it's clear that Netflix has subverted the holiday movie blueprint, Hallmark, I'm looking at you, by giving us novelty, thrill, and humor." 11. Derek Smith of Slant magazine wrote, "In the end, the film succumbs to the tropes and emotional contrivances of the family melodrama at its core, ending up as a serviceable yet mostly forgettable addition to the already overstuffed genre of holiday-themed films." 12. Soundtrack. The film features a cover of Elvis Presley's Santa Claus is Back in Town, performed by Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul, with actor Kurt Russell on lead vocals. The lineup includes Stevie Van Zandt, of Springsteen's E Street Band, and Mark Reibler on guitar. 15. The band recorded the song with Russell at Steven's studio in New York. 13. In the film, the song is performed by Santa Claus, Kurt Russell, during a scene set at the jailhouse. Each of the band appear on screen, including Van Zandt and Reibler as named characters Wolfie and Dusty. Sequel. Main article, The Christmas Chronicles 2. On September 15, 2020, a sequel titled The Christmas Chronicles 2 was announced. Original director Clay Tages dropped out and was replaced by Chris Columbus, who produced the first installment. Stars Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn, Darby Camp, Kimberly Williams Paisley, and Judah Lewis were all confirmed to reprise their roles, while Julian Dennison and Jezio Bruno were cast to appear in the sequel. 16. The Christmas Chronicles 2 was released on Netflix on November 25, 2020. Darby Eliza Camp, born July 14, 2007, 1, is an American actress. Her career had begun through her mother, an actress herself. Camp's breakout role came in HBO's Big Little Lies, 2017 to 2019, in the recurring role of Chloe Adeline Mackenzie, the daughter of Madeline Martha Mackenzie, Reese Witherspoon. She garnered further recognition for her appearances in films as Frankie Hughes in Benji, 2018, Kate Pierce in The Christmas Chronicles, 2018, and Phoebe Evans in Dreamland, 2019. She reprised her role of Kate Pierce in The Christmas Chronicles 2. In addition, she starred in Paramount Pictures as Clifford the Big Red Dog and stars as Gaslit. After seeing Camp's enjoyment of acting, her mother submitted her for a role. Through her mother's contacts, Camp booked roles in television series such as Drop Dead Diva and The Leftovers. 4. In early 2016, Camp was announced to have joined the cast of the television adaptation of Leanne Moriarty's Big Little Lies, which was her breakout role. 5. 6. While Camp was unaware of who Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman were, her parents were super excited about them. 5. Witherspoon gave Camp suggestions while acting, which the latter described as nice and professional. 7. Debuting in February 2017, Geek, the series featured Camp as Chloe Adeline Mackenzie, the daughter of Madeline Martha Mackenzie, Witherspoon. 2. The show was critically acclaimed, particularly for its performances. 9. 10. Later that year, Big Little Lies was renewed for a second season. 11. Regarding Season 2 episode, Kill Me, Ben Travers of IndieWire said Camp's hug with Adam Scott, Shatter, Dead, Hearts. 12. In 2017, she was announced to have joined the cast of Dreamland. The film was in production during the announcement. 13. Camp stated her dad had secured the audition for her. She was excited when she heard it as the film starred Margot Robbie, whom she was a fan of. 5. While filming Dreamland, Camp auditioned for Netflix film The Christmas Chronicles, where she would play an 11-year-old girl who believes in Santa Claus. After her agent stated it sounded like something she would be really great at. 5. She was enthusiastic about as she never thought she would get in a Christmas film. 5. In 2018, she starred in Benji, which was released on March 16, 2018, to mixed reviews. 15. The performances were sources of praise. Common Sense Media's Renee Schonfeld found Camp and Gabriel Bateman gifted with realism and heart. 16. The Christmas Chronicles was released in November of the same year. Camp's performance received mixed reviews from critics. Fox writer Emily St. James opined that Camp and Judah Lewis, who plays her on-screen brother Teddy, succeed in feeling more or less like real kids, deeming their emotional moments flat and criticizing their disconnection with Kurt Russell, who plays Santa Claus. 17. By contrast, IGN thought Russell was well-matched by Camp and Lewis. 18. Earlier in 2018, Camp was announced to be recurring in AMC's supernatural horror television series Nos 4A2 as Haley Smith, a tough, adventurous, humorous, and confident 10-year-old girl, and debuted in 2019. 19. Dreamland premiered on April 28, 2019, at the Tribeca Film Festival and was received averagely by critics. 20. 21. Camp's portrayal garnered praise from David Ehrlich of IndieWire, who deemed her inquisitive but never annoying. 22. In 2019, Camp was announced to be playing the lead role of Emily Elizabeth Howard, a misfit who becomes best friends with a small puppy, in Paramount Pictures' film adaptation of Clifford the Big Red Dog. 23. It was originally set for a September 2021 theatrical release, though this was later pushed back to November 2021. 24. Due to the Delta variant of the SARS-CoV-2. 25. 26. Although the film received mixed reviews. 27. Camp's performance was praised. Chicago Sun-Times considered her appealing and sweetly but not obnoxiously precocious, 28, while Los Angeles Times said, Camp is able to sell her emotional connection to the enormous Scarlet Pimpernel among all the chaos, which keeps the movie's heart in the right place. 29. In May 2020, the sequel to The Christmas Chronicles was announced. 30. Released in November of the same year, the second film also received mixed reviews. 31. 32. Writing for Deadline Hollywood, Pete Hammond considered her reprisal pleasant. 33. In May 2021, she was tasked as a regular in Starz's Gaslit, where she will play Marty Mitchell, a young girl who has been overshadowed by her mother, Martha Mitchell. Julia Roberts. Lamorne Morris, born August 14, 1983, is an American actor and comedian. He has played the roles of Winston Bishop in the Fox sitcom New Girl, 2011 to 2018, Daniel in Call Me Kat, Darren Morris in the National Geographic docudrama Valley of the Boom, 2019, about the 90s tech boom, cartoonist Keith Knight in the Hulu comedy Woe, 2020 to 2022, 2, and North Dakota State Trooper Whitley Witt Farr in the 5th season of Fargo, for which she won a Primetime Emmy Award. 3. He has also had supporting roles in the films Barbershop, The Next Cut, 2016, Dame Night, 2018, Jumanji, The Next Level, 2019, and Yesterday, 2019. Early life. Morris grew up on the south side of Chicago. As a teenager, he moved to the western suburb of Glen Ellen, where he attended Glenbard South High School. Attorney and political candidate Qasim Rashid was a classmate of his. 4. 5. His mother worked for the United States Postal Service. 6. He also has a brother, Devin. 7. Before he discovered acting, Morris was a class clown who would frequently be sent to detention. 8. Morris graduated from the College of DuPage in 2003, where he studied theater and received the Chris Farley Memorial Acting Scholarship. 9. He also attended the Second City Training Center and was a member of Second City's Outreach and Diversity Ensemble. While studying at Second City, Morris worked as a server at Ed DeBevick's, a retro-themed diner where the servers act rude to the diners. 8. Career. Morris appeared in commercials for State Farm Insurance, Taco Bell, Twix, Miller Lite, Las Vegas, 7-Up, Dedge, Sears, Microsoft Windows, Chili's, McDonald's, Ford, and Hornitos Tequila. In 2019, he became the spokesperson for the Canadian-based Bank of Montreal and the Chicago-based Bank of Montreal subsidiary BMO Harris Bank. 5. Morris started out as an on-air personality for BET, hosting Hot Wired, an interactive tap-in gaming show, as well as the daily music and entertainment news show BET Now, in addition to other appearances. Morris also hosted the game show Brain Rush on Cartoon Network as part of CN Real. 9. Morris's breakthrough came when he was cast as Winston Bishop in the comedy series New Girl on Fox, 2011 to 2018. 10. Morris did not appear until the second episode. 11. Originally, Damon Wayans Jr. was a member of the cast, in the role of Coach. However, Wayans' other comedy series, Happy Endings, had already been picked up for a second season on rival network ABC. The producers of New Girl initially planned to recast Wayans' role, 12, but later decided not to recast and instead wrote his character out in the second episode. Morris co-wrote the season 4 episode, Par 5, and directed the final season episode in which Winston reconnects with his dad, played by J.B. Smoove. 13. 6. In November 2018, it was announced that Morris would be starring in a half-hour sitcom, Woke, based on cartoonist Keith Knight's autobiographical comic strip The K Chronicles on Hulu. 14. It ran for 2 seasons, released in 2020 and 2022, and was cancelled in June 2022. 15. Morris has also appeared in the films Barbershop, The Next Cut, 2016, Game Night, 2018, The Christmas Chronicles, 2018, Jumanji, The Next Level, 2019, Yesterday, 2019, Bloodshot, 2020, and Desperados, 2020. Reindeer vary greatly in size and color, from the smallest, the Svalbard reindeer, R.T. Platyrintus, to the largest, Osborne's caribou, R.T. osborni. Although reindeer are quite numerous, some species and subspecies are in decline and considered vulnerable. They are unique among deer, Cervidae, in that females may have antlers, although the prevalence of antlered females varies by subspecies. Reindeer are the only successfully semi-domesticated deer on a large scale in the world. Both wild and domestic reindeer have been an important source of food, clothing, and shelter for Arctic people from prehistorical times. They are still herded and hunted today. 6. In some traditional Christmas legends, Santa Claus's reindeer pull a sleigh through the night sky to help Santa Claus deliver gifts to good children on Christmas Eve. Description: names follow international convention. 7. 8. Before the recent revision. 9. See reindeer section taxonomy below. Reindeer/caribou, rangifer, vary in size from the smallest, the Svalbard reindeer, R.T. platyrintus, to the largest, Osborne's caribou, R.T. osborni. They also vary in coat color and antler architecture. The North American range of caribou extends from Alaska through the Yukon, the Northwest Territories and Nunavut throughout the tundra, taiga, boreal forest, and south through the Canadian Rocky Mountains. 10. Of the 8 subspecies classified by Harding, 2022, into the Arctic caribou, Arcticus, the migratory mainland barren ground caribou of Arctic Alaska and northern Canada, R.T. arcticus. Summer in tundra and winter in taiga, a transitional forest zone between boreal forest and tundra. The nomadic Piri caribou, R.T. pirii, lives in the polar desert of the high Arctic archipelago, and Grant's caribou, R.T. grantii, also called the porcupine caribou, lives in the western end of the Alaska Peninsula and the adjacent islands. The other four subspecies, Osborne's caribou, R.T. osbornei, Stone's caribou, R.T. stonei, the Rocky Mountain caribou, R.T. fortidens, and the Selkirk Mountains caribou, R.T. montanus, are all montane. The extinct Insula Queen Charlotte Islands caribou, R.T. dawsonii, lived on Graham Island in Haida Gwaii, formerly known as the Queen Charlotte Islands. The boreal woodland caribou, R.T. caribou, lives in the boreal forest of northeastern Canada, the Labrador or Ungava caribou of northern Quebec and northern Labrador, R.T. cabotii, and the Newfoundland caribou of Newfoundland, R.T. terranovi, have been found to be genetically in the woodland caribou lineage, 11-12. In Eurasia, both wild and domestic reindeer are distributed across the tundra and into the taiga. Eurasian mountain reindeer, R.T. tarandus, are close to North American caribou genetically and visually, but with sufficient differences to warrant division into two species. The unique, insular Svalbard reindeer inhabits the Svalbard archipelago. The Finnish forest reindeer, R.T. phenicus, is spottily distributed in the coniferous forest zones from Finland to east of Lake Baikal. The Siberian forest reindeer, R.T. valentini, formerly called the Busk Mountains reindeer, R.T. buskensis, by American taxonomists, occupies the Altai and Ural Mountains. Male, bull, and female, cow, reindeer can grow antlers annually, although the proportion of females that grow antlers varies greatly between populations. 7. Antlers are typically larger on males. Antler architecture varies by species and subspecies and, together with pelage differences, can often be used to distinguish between species and subspecies. See illustrations in Geist, 1991, 13, and Geist, 1998, 14. Status. About 25,000 mountain reindeer, R.T. tarandus, still live in the mountains of Norway, notably in Hardangervidda. 15. In Sweden there are approximately 250,000 reindeer in herds managed by Sami villages. 16. Russia manages 19 herds of Siberian tundra reindeer, R.T. sibiricus, that total about 940,000. 17. The Taimyr herd of Siberian tundra reindeer is the largest wild reindeer herd in the world. 18. 19. Varying between 400,000 and 1 million, it is a metapopulation consisting of several subpopulations, some of which are phenotypically different. 20. With different migration routes and calving areas. 21. 22. The Kamchatkan reindeer, R.T. Phylarchus, a forest subspecies, formerly included reindeer west of the Sea of Okhotsk which, however, are indistinguishable genetically from the Jano-Indijurka, East Siberian taiga and Chukotka populations of R.T. sibiricus. 23. Siberian tundra reindeer herds have been in decline but are stable or increasing since 2017. Insular, island, reindeer, classified as the Novaya Zemlya reindeer, R.T. personi, occupy several island groups. The Novaya Zemlya archipelago, about 5,000 animals at last count, but most of these are either domestic reindeer or domestic wild hybrids. The New Siberia archipelago, about 10,000 to 15,000, and Wrangel Island, 200 to 300 feral domestic reindeer. 24. What was once the second largest herd is the migratory Labrador caribou, R.T. cabotii. 9. George River herd in Canada, with former variations between 28,000 and 385,000. As of January 2018, there are fewer than 9,000 animals estimated to be left in the George River herd, as reported by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. 25. The New York Times reported in April 2018 of the disappearance of the only herd of southern mountain woodland caribou in the contiguous United States, with an expert calling it functionally extinct, after the herd size dwindled to a mere 3 animals. 26. After the last individual, a female, was translocated to a wildlife rehabilitation center in Canada, caribou were considered extirpated from the contiguous United States. 27. The Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada, COSUC, classified both the southern mountain population DU9, RT, montanus, and the central mountain population DU8, RT, forridens, as endangered, and the northern mountain population DU7, RT, osborni, as threatened. 28. Some species and subspecies are rare and 3 subspecies have already become extinct. The Queen Charlotte Islands caribou, T. dawsoni, from western Canada, the Sakhalin reindeer, T. sitoni, from Sakhalin, and the East Greenland caribou from eastern Greenland. 29, 30, 31. Although some authorities believe that the latter, T. Eogroenlandicus detrobal, 1957, is a junior synonym of the prairie caribou. 9, 32, 33. Historically, the range of the sedentary boreal woodland caribou covered more than half of Canada, 34, and into the northern states of the contiguous United States from Maine to Washington. Boreal woodland caribou have disappeared from most of their original southern range and were designated as threatened in 2002 by the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada, COSUC. 35. Environment and Climate Change Canada reported in 2011 that there were approximately 34,000 boreal woodland caribou in 51 ranges remaining in Canada. Environment Canada, 2011b, 36. Although those numbers included montane populations classified by Harding, 2022, into subspecies of the Arctic. Caribou. 9. Siberian tundra reindeer herds are also in decline, and rangifer as a whole is considered to be vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. Naming. Charles Hamilton Smith is credited with the name rangifer for the reindeer genus, 37, which Albertus Magnus used in his De Animalibus, Folios Liber 22, cap 268, Dicitor rangifer quasi ramifer. This word may go back to the Sami word rango, 38. Paul Linnaeus chose the word Tarandus as the specific epithet, making reference to Ulysses Aldrovandi's Quadrupedum omnium bisulcarum Historia folios 859-863, cap 30, de Tarando, 1621. However, Aldrovandi and Conrad Dessner, 39, thought that rangifer and Tarandus were 2 separate animals. 40. In any case, the Tarando's name goes back to Aristotle and Theophrastus. The use of the terms reindeer and caribou for essentially the same animal can cause confusion, but the ICUN clearly delineates the issue. Reindeer is the European name for the species of rangifer, while in North America, rangifer species are known as caribou. 2. 41. The word reindeer is an anglicized version of the Old Norse words rein, reindeer, and dyr, animal, and has nothing to do with reins. 42. The word caribou comes through French, from the Mi'kmaq talapo, meaning snow shoveler, and refers to its habit of pawing through the snow for food. The glacial-interglacial cycles of the Upper Pleistocene had a major influence on the evolution of rangifer species and other Arctic and subarctic species. Isolation of tundra-adapted species rangifer in last glacial maximum refugia during the last glacial the Wisconsin glaciation in North America and the Waxelian glaciation in Eurasia, shaped intraspecific genetic variability, particularly between the North American and Eurasian parts of the Arctic. 5. Reindeer/caribou, rangefer, are in the subfamily Otocoelini, along with roe deer, capreolus, Eurasian elk/moose, alces, and water deer, hydropotes. These antlered cervids split from the horned ruminants bos, cattle and yaks, ovis, sheep, and capra, goats, about 36 million years ago. 50. The Eurasian clade of Otocoelini, Capreolini, Hydropatini, and Alcini, split from the New World tribes of Capreolini, Otocoelini, and Rangiferini in the late Miocene, 8.7 to 9.6 million years ago. 51. Rangifer, evolved as a mountain deer, exploiting the subalpine and alpine meadows. 14. Rangifer originated in the late Pliocene and diversified in the early Pleistocene, a 2+ million year period of multiple glacier advances and retreats. Several named rangifer fossils in Eurasia and North America predate the evolution of modern tundra reindeer. Archaeologists distinguish modern tundra reindeer and barren ground caribou from primitive forms, living and extinct, that did not have adaptations to extreme cold and to long-distance migration. They include a broad, high muzzle to increase the volume of the nasal cavity to warm and moisten the air before it enters the throat and lungs, best tines set close to the brow tines, distinctive coat patterns, short legs and other adaptations for running long distances, and multiple behaviors suited to tundra, but not to forest, such as synchronized calving and aggregation during rutting and post-calving. 52. As well, many genes, including those for vitamin D metabolism, fat metabolism, retinal development, circadian rhythm, and tolerance to cold temperatures, are found in tundra caribou that are lacking or rudimentary in forest types. 53, 54. For this reason, forest-adapted reindeer and caribou could not survive in tundra or polar deserts. The oldest undoubted rangifer fossil is from Omsk, Russia, dated to 2.1 to 1.8 ma. 55. The oldest North American rangifer fossil is from the Yukon, 1.6 million years before present, BP. 56. A fossil skull fragment from Sussenborn, Germany, Arcticus statomani. 57, which is probably misnamed, with rather thin and cylinder-shaped antlers, dates to the Middle Pleistocene, Guns, period, 680,000 to 620,000 BP. 58. Rangifer fossils become increasingly frequent in circumpolar deposits beginning with the Russe glaciations, the second youngest of the Pleistocene epoch, roughly 300,000 to 130,000 BP. By the Forewarm period, 110,000 to 70,000 to 12,000 to 10,000 BP, its European range was extensive, supplying a major food source for prehistoric Europeans. 59. North American fossils outside of Beringia that predate the last glacial maximum, LGM, are of Rancolabrian age, 240,000 to 11,000 years BP, and occur along the fringes of the Rocky Mountain and Laurentide ice sheets as far south as northern Alabama, and in Sangamonian deposits, 100,000 years BP, from western Canada. Periodized caribou occupied Greenland before and after the LGM and persisted in a relict enclave in northeastern Greenland until it went extinct about 1900. See discussion of Yogoinlandicus below. Archaeological excavations showed that larger barren ground-sized caribou appeared in western Greenland about 4,000 years ago. Valerius Geist, 1998, dated the Eurasian reindeer radiation dates to the Large Russe glaciation, 347,000 to 128,000 years ago, based on the Norwegian Svalbard split 225,000 years ago. Finnish forest reindeer, R.T. Fennicus, likely evolved from Sovis, Rangefra, Guettardi Demarest, 1822, a reindeer that adapted to forest habitats in Eastern Europe as forests expanded during an interglacial period before the LGM, the Warmian-Hoaxilian glaciation. 58. The fossil species Guettardi was later replaced by A. constantini, which was adapted for grasslands. 63. In a second immigration 19,000 to 20,000 years ago when the LGM turned its forest habitats into tundra, while Fennicus survived in isolation in southwestern Europe. 58. Constantini was then replaced by modern tundra/barren ground caribou adapted to extreme cold, probably in Beringia, before dispersing west. T. Tarandus in the Scandinavian mountains and T. sibiricus across Siberia, and east, T. arcticus in the North American barren lands, when rising seas isolated them. Likewise in North America, DNA analysis shows that woodland caribou, caribou, diverged from primitive ancestors of tundra/barren ground caribou not during the LGM, 26,000 to 19,000 years ago, as previously assumed, but in the Middle Pleistocene around 357,000 years ago. At that time, modern tundra caribou had not even evolved. Woodland caribou are likely more related to extinct North American forest caribou than to barren ground caribou. For example, the extinct caribou Tarantoceros, Rangifer, Hypogeus, had features, robust and short pedicles, smooth antler surface, and high position of second tine, that related to forest caribou. 66. Humans started hunting reindeer in both the Mesolithic and Neolithic periods, and humans are today the main predator in many areas. Norway and Greenland have unbroken traditions of hunting wild reindeer from the last glacial period until the present day. In the non-forested mountains of central Norway, such as Jotunheimen, it is still possible to find remains of stone-built trap-in pits, guiding fences and bow rests, built especially for hunting reindeer. These can, with some certainty, be dated to the migration period, although it is not unlikely that they have been in use since the Stone Age. Cave paintings by ancient Europeans include both tundra and forest types of reindeer. A 2022 study of ancient environmental DNA from the early Pleistocene, 2 million years ago, Cap-Kürbenhound Formation of northern Greenland identified preserved DNA fragments of Rangifer, identified as basal but potentially ancestral to modern reindeer. This suggests that reindeer have inhabited Greenland since at least the early Pleistocene. Around this time, northern Greenland was 11 to 19 degrees Celsius, 20 to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than the Holocene, with a boreal forest hosting a species assemblage with no modern analog. These are among the oldest DNA fragments ever sequenced. Rangifer has had a convoluted history because of the similarity in antler architecture, brow tines asymmetrical and often palmate, bes tines, a back tine sometimes branched, and branched at the distal end, often palmate. Citation needed. Because of individual variability, early taxonomists were unable to discern consistent patterns among populations, nor could they, examining collections in Europe, appreciate the difference in habitats and the differing function they imposed on antler architecture. Citation needed. Comparative morphometrics, the measurement of skulls, is often seen as more objective than description of differences of color or antler patterns, but actually confounds genetic variance with epistatic and statistical variance as well as compounded environment-based variance. 60. Modern tundra caribou bes tines are set low, just above the brow tine, which is vertically flattened to protect the eyes while the buck threshes, low brush, a courtship display. 69. The low bes tines help the wide flat brow tines dig craters in the hard-packed tundra snow for forage. for which reason brow tines are often called shovels in North America and ice tines in Europe. Citation needed. The differences in antler architecture reflect fundamental differences in ecology and behavior, and in turn deep divisions in ancestry that were not apparent to the early taxonomists. Citation needed. Similarly, working on museum collections where skins were often faded and in poor states of preservation, early taxonomists could not readily perceive differences in coat patterns that are consistent within a subspecies, but variable among them. Geist calls these nuptial characteristics, sexually selected characters that are highly conserved and diagnostic among subspecies. 1460. Biological exploration expeditions. Towards the end of the 19th century, national museums began sending out biological exploration expeditions and collections accumulated. Taxonomists, usually working for the museums, began naming subspecies more rigorously, based on statistical differences in detailed cranial, dental, and skeletal measurements than antlers and pelage, supplemented by better knowledge of differences in ecology and behavior. From 1898 to 1937, the mammalogists named 12 new species, other than barren ground and woodland, which had been named earlier, of caribou in Canada and Alaska, and 3 new species and 9 new subspecies in Eurasia, each properly described according to the evolving rules of zoological nomenclature, with type localities designated and type specimens deposited in museums. See table in species and subspecies below. 970. Reclassification. In the mid-20th century, as definitions of species devolved, how mammalogists in Europe, 71, and North America, 72, made all rangifer species conspecific with the Tarandus, and synonymized most of the subspecies. Alexander William Francis Banfield's often cited a revision of the reindeer and caribou, genus Rangifer, 1961, 73, eliminated A. T. Caboti, the Labrador caribou, A. T. Osborni, Osborne's caribou, from British Columbia, and A. T. Terranovi, the Newfoundland caribou, as invalid and included only barren ground caribou, were named as A. T. Groenlandicus, formerly A. Arcticus, and woodland caribou as A. T. caribou. However, Banfield made multiple errors, eliciting a scathing review by Ian McCaber-Cowan in 1962-74. Most authorities continued to consider all or most subspecies valid, some were quite distinct. In his chapter in the authoritative 2005 reference work Mammal Species of the World, 7, referenced by the American Society of Mammalogists, English zoologist Peter Grubb agreed with Valerius Geist, a specialist on large mammals, 1460, that these subspecies were valid, i.e., before the recent revision in North America, A. T. Caboti, A. T. caribou, A. T. dawsoni, A. T. Groenlandicus, A. T. osborni, A. T. perii, and A. T. terranovi, and in Eurasia, A. T. tarandus, A. T. biscensis, called A. T. valentini in Europe, see below, A. T. phalacus, A. T. personi, A. T. sibiricus, and A. T. clitorhynchus. These subspecies were retained in the 2011 replacement work Handbook of the Mammals of the World Volume 2, Hoofed Mammals, 8. Most Russian authors also recognized A. T. angustirostris, a forest reindeer from east of Lake Baikal, 1723-75. However, since 1991, many genetic studies have revealed deep divergence between modern tundra reindeer and woodland caribou, 5, 11, 76, 77, 78, Geist, 2007, and others continued arguing that the woodland caribou was incorrectly classified, noting that true woodland caribou, the uniformly dark, small mane type with the frontally emphasized, flat-beamed antlers, is scattered thinly along the southern rim of North American caribou distribution. He affirms that the true woodland caribou is very rare, in very great difficulties, and requires the most urgent of attention. 79. Ecotypes. In 2011, noting that the former classifications of Rangifer tarandus, Heather with prevailing taxonomy on subspecies, designations based on ecotypes, or natural population groupings, failed to capture the variability of caribou across their range in Canada, needed for effective subspecies conservation and management, COSUC developed Designatable Unit, DU, Attribution, 35, an adaptation of Evolutionary Significant Units, GATI, the 12 designatable units for caribou in Canada, that is, excluding Alaska and Greenland, based on ecology, behavior and, importantly, genetics, but excluding morphology and archaeology, essentially followed the previously named subspecies distributions, without naming them as such, plus some ecotypes. Ecotypes are not phylogenetically based and cannot substitute for taxonomy, DATI 1. Genetic, molecular, and archaeological evidence. Meanwhile, genetic data continued to accumulate, revealing sufficiently deep divisions to easily separate Rangifer back into 6 previously named species and to resurrect several previously named subspecies. Molecular data showed that the Greenland caribou, A.T. groenlandicus, and the Svalbard reindeer, A.T. platyrhynchus, although not closely related to each other, were the most genetically divergent among Rangifer clades winged with the frown 12, that modern, see evolution above, Eurasian tundra reindeer, R.T. tarandus and R.T. sibiricus, and North American barren ground caribou, R.T. arcticus, although sharing ancestry, were separable at the subspecies level, that Finnish forest reindeer, R.T. phenicus, clustered well apart from both wild and domestic tundra reindeer, 23, and that boreal woodland caribou, R.T. caribou, were separable from all others, 82, 83. Meanwhile, archaeological evidence was accumulating that Eurasian forest reindeer descended from an extinct forest-adapted reindeer and not from tundra reindeer, see evolution above. Since they do not share a direct common ancestor, they cannot be conspecific. Similarly, woodland caribou diverged from the ancestors of Arctic caribou before modern barren ground caribou had evolved, and were more likely related to extinct North American forest reindeer, see evolution above. Lacking a direct shared ancestor, barren ground and woodland caribou cannot be conspecific. Molecular data also revealed that the 4 Western Canadian montane ecotypes are not woodland caribou. They share a common ancestor with modern barren ground caribou, tundra reindeer, but distantly, having diverged more than 60,000 years ago, 12, 64, 84, before the modern ecotypes had evolved their cold and darkness-adapted physiologies and mass migration and aggregation behaviors. See evolution above. Before Banfield, 1961, taxonomists using cranial, dental, and skeletal measurements had unequivocally allied these Western montane ecotypes with barren ground caribou, naming them, as in Osgood 1909, 85, Murray 1935, 86, and Anderson 1946, 87, among others, R.T. stonii, R.T. montanus, R.T. foridens and R.T. osborni, respectively, 86, 87, and this phylogeny was confirmed by genetic analysis. Novel genetics-based clades. DNA also revealed 3 unnamed clades that, based on genetic distance, genetic divergence, and shared versus private haplotypes and alleles, together with ecological and behavioral differences, may justify separation at the subspecies level. The Atlantic Daspacy caribou, COSUC DU11, 65, 77, an eastern montane ecotype of the boreal woodland caribou, and the Baffin Island caribou, 88. Neither one of these clades has yet been formally described or named. Jenkins et al., 2012, said that Baffin Island caribou are unique compared to other barren ground herds, as they do not overwinter in forested habitat, nor do all caribou undertake long seasonal migrations to calving areas. It also shares a hen tDNA haplotype with Labrador caribou in the North American lineage, i.e., woodland caribou. 82, Road et al., 1991, 76, had noted. Among Baffin Island caribou, the TFL2 allele was the most common allele, p equals 0.521, while this allele was absent or present in very low frequencies in other caribou populations, Table 1, including the Canadian barren ground caribou from the Beverly herd. A large genetic difference between Baffin Island caribou and the Beverly herd was also indicated by 8 alleles found in the Beverly herd which were absent from the Baffin Island samples. Jenkins et al., 2018, 88, also reported genetic distinctiveness of Baffin Island caribou from all other barren ground caribou. Its genetic signature was not found on the mainland or on other islands, nor were Beverly herd, the nearest mainly barren ground caribou, alleles present in Baffin Island caribou, evidence of reproductive isolation. These advances in rangifer genetics were brought together with previous morphological-based descriptions, ecology, behavior, and archaeology to propose a new revision of the genus. The scientific name Groenlandicus is fraught with problems. Edwards, 1743, 98, illustrated and claimed to have seen a male specimen, head of perfect horns, from Greenland and said that a Captain Craycott had brought a live pair from Greenland to England in 1738. He named it Capra Groenlandicus, Greenland reindeer. Linnaeus, 99, in the 12th edition of Systema Naturae, gave Groenlandicus as a synonym for Cervus tarandus. Borowski, 100, disagreed, and again changed the spelling, saying Cervus groenlandicus was morphologically distinct from Eurasian tundra reindeer. Baird, 101, placed it under the genus Rangifer as a Groenlandicus. They went back and forth as a full species or subspecies of the barren ground caribou, a Octicus, or a subspecies of the tundra reindeer, a Tarandus, but always as the Greenland reindeer/caribou. Taxonomists consistently documented morphological differences between Greenland and other caribou/reindeer in cranial measurements, dentition, antler architecture, etc. 102, 103, Den Banfield, 1961, 72, in his famously flawed revision, gave the name Groenlandicus to all the barren ground caribou in North America, Greenland included, because Groenlandicus predates Richardson's 104 R. Arctus. However, because genetic data shows the Greenland caribou to be the most distantly related of any caribou to all the others, genetic distance, FST equals 44%, 12, whereas most cervid, deer family, species have a genetic distance of 2% to 5%, 89, as well as behavioral and morphological differences. A recent revision returned it to species status as a Groenlandicus, 9, although it has been assumed that the larger caribou that appeared in Greenland 4,000 years ago originated from Baffin Island itself. Unique, see taxonomy above. A reconstruction of LGM glacial retreat and caribou advance, Yennick et al. 2013, 12, shows colonization by NAL lineage caribou more likely. Their PCA and tree diagrams show Greenland caribou clustering outside of the Beringian-Eurasian lineage. The scientific name T. grantii has a very interesting history. Allen, 1902, 90, named it as a distinct species, Grantee, from the western end of Alaska Peninsula, opposite Popoff Island, and noting that Rangifer grantee is a representative of the Bering Ground group of caribou, which includes Arcticus of the Arctic coast and Grönlandicus of Greenland. It is not closely related to Stonii of the Kenai Peninsula, from which it differs not only in its very much smaller size, but in important cranial characters and in coloration. The external and cranial differences between grantee and the various forms of the woodland caribou are so great in almost every respect that no detailed comparison is necessary. According to Mr. Stone, Rangifer grantee inhabits the barren land of Alaska Peninsula, ranging well up into the mountains in summer, but descending to the lower levels in winter, generally feeding on the low flat lands near the coast and in the foothills. As regards cranial characters, no comparison is necessary with the montanus or with any of the woodland forms. Osgood, 85, and Newry, 1935, 86, agreeing with grantee's close relationship with the barren ground caribou, brought it under Arcticus as a subspecies, T. grantee. Anderson, 1946, 87, and Banfield, 1961, 72, based on statistical analysis of cranial, dental, and other characters, agreed. But Banfield, 1961, also synonymized Alaska's large Stonii with other mountain caribou of British Columbia and the Yukon as invalid subspecies of woodland caribou, then T. caribou. This left the small, migratory barren ground caribou of Alaska and the Yukon, including the porcupine caribou herd, without a name, which Banfield rectified in his 1974 Mammals of Canada, 105, by extending to them the name grantee. Valerius Geist, 1998, in the only error in his whole illustrious career, reanalyzed Banfield's data with additional specimens found in an unpublished report he cites as Scow, 1982, but was not able to find diagnostic features that could segregate this form from the western barren ground type. But Scow 1982 had included specimens from the eastern end of the Alaska Peninsula and the Kenai Peninsula, the range of the larger Stone's caribou. Later, geneticists comparing barren ground caribou of Alaska with those of mainland Canada found little difference, and they all became the form T. Groenlandicus, now T. arcticus. T. grantee was lost in the oblivion of invalid taxonomy until Alaskan researchers sampled some small, pale caribou from the western end of the Alaska Peninsula, their range enclosing the type locality designated by Allen, 1902, and found them to be genetically distinct from all other caribou in Alaska, 106, 107. Thus, grantee was rediscovered, its range restricted to that originally described. Stone's caribou, T. stonia, 108, the large montane type, was described from the Kenai Peninsula, where, apparently, there was never common except in years of great abundance, 86, the eastern end of the Alaska Peninsula, and mountains throughout southern and eastern Alaska, 108, there was placed under Arcticus as a subspecies, 86, T. stonii, and later synonymized as noted above. The same genetic analyses mentioned above for T. grantee, 107, resulted in resurrecting T. stonii as well, 9. The Sakhalin reindeer, T. sitoni, endemic to Sakhalin, was described as Rangifer taranda sitoni flaref, 1933, but Banfield, 1961, brought it under T. phoenicus as a junior synonym. The wild reindeer on the island are apparently extinct, having been replaced by domestic reindeer. Some of the Rangifer species and subspecies may be further divided by ecotype depending on several behavioral factors: predominant habitat use, northern, tundra, mountain, forest, boreal forest, forest dwelling, woodland, woodland, boreal, woodland, migratory, or woodland, mountain, spacing, dispersed or aggregated, and migration patterns, sedentary or migratory. 109, 110, 111. North American examples of this are the Torngat Mountain population Du-10, an ecotype of T. caboti, a recently discovered and unnamed clade between the Mackenzie River and Great Bear Lake of Beringian Eurasian lineage, an ecotype of T. osborni, the Atlantic Daspacy population Du-11, an eastern montane ecotype of the boreal woodland caribou, T. caribou, the Baffin Island caribou, an ecotype of the barren ground caribou, T. octicus, wink with a frown 88, and the Dolphin Union herd, another ecotype of T. octicus, 115. The last three of these likely qualify as subspecies, 9, but they have not yet been formally described or named. There is considerable variation among species and subspecies in the size of the antlers, e.g., they are rather small and spindly in the northernmost species and subspecies, 119, but on average the bull's antlers are the second largest of any extant deer, after those of the male moose. In the largest subspecies, the antlers of large bulls can range up to 100 centimeters, 39 in width and 135 centimeters, 53 in beam length. They have the largest antlers relative to body size among living deer species, 116. Antler size measured in number of points reflects the nutritional status of the reindeer and climate variation of its environment, 120. 121. The number of points on male reindeer increases from birth to 5 years of age and remains relatively constant from then on. 121. 24. In male caribou, antler mass, but not the number of tines, varies in concert with body mass. 122. 123. While antlers of male woodland caribou are typically smaller than those of male barren ground caribou, they can be over 1 meter, 3 feet 3 inches, across. They are flattened in cross-section, compact and relatively dense. 36. Geist describes them as frontally emphasized, flat-beamed antlers. 79. Woodland caribou antlers are thicker and broader than those of the barren ground caribou and their legs and heads are longer. 36. Quebec Labrador male caribou antlers can be significantly larger and wider than other woodland caribou. Central barren ground male caribou antlers are perhaps the most diverse in configuration and can grow to be very high and wide. Osborne's caribou antlers are typically the most massive, with the largest circumference measurements, 124. The antler's main beams begin at the brow, extending posterior over the shoulders and bowing so that the tips point forward. The prominent, palmate brow tines extend forward, over the face. 125. The antlers typically have two separate groups of points, lower and upper. Antlers begin to grow on male reindeer in March or April and on female reindeer in May or June. This process is called antlerogenesis. Antlers grow very quickly every year on the bulls. As the antlers grow, they are covered in thick velvet, filled with blood vessels and spongy in texture. The antler velvet of the barren ground caribou and the boreal woodland caribou is dark chocolate brown, 126. The velvet that covers grown antlers is a highly vascularized skin. This velvet is dark brown on woodland or barren ground caribou and slate gray on prairie caribou and the Dolphin Union caribou herd, 125, 127, 128. Velvet lumps in March can develop into a rack measuring more than 1 meter, 3 feet 3 inches, in length by August, 129, 88. A.R. Tarandus skull. When the antler growth is fully grown and hardened, the velvet is shed or rubbed off. To Inuit, for whom the caribou is a culturally important keystone species, the months are named after landmarks in the caribou life cycle. For example, Amarija in the Agwolak region is when velvet falls off caribou antlers. Male reindeer use their antlers to compete with other males during the mating season. Butler, 1986, showed that the social requirements of caribou females during the rut determines the mating strategies of males and, consequently, the form of male antlers. 131, in describing woodland caribou, which have a harem defense mating system, Sarah wrote, during the rut, males engage in frequent and furious sparring battles with their antlers. Large males with large antlers do most of the mating. 132, reindeer continue to migrate until the bulls have spent their back fat. 130, 133, 134. By contrast, barren ground caribou males tend individual females and their fights are brief and much less intense. Consequently, their antlers are long and thin, round in cross-section and less branched and are designed more for show or sexual attraction than fighting. In late autumn or early winter after the rut, male reindeer lose their antlers, growing a new pair the next summer with a larger rack than the previous year. Female reindeer keep their antlers until they calve. In the Scandinavian and Arctic Circle populations, old bulls' antlers fall off in late December, young bulls' antlers fall off in the early spring, and cows' antlers fall off in the summer. Citation needed. When male reindeer shed their antlers in early to midwinter, the antlered cows acquire the highest ranks in the feeding hierarchy, gaining access to the best forage areas. These cows are healthier than those without antlers. 135. Calves whose mothers do not have antlers are more prone to disease and have a significantly higher mortality. 135. Cows in good nutritional condition, for example, during a mild winter with good winter range quality, may grow new antlers earlier as antler growth requires high intake. 135. Detached every year, young males lose the velvet from the antlers much more quickly than female caribou even though they are not fully mature. They start to work with their antlers just as soon as the velvet starts to fall off. The young males engage in fights with their antlers towards autumn. Soon after the velvet had fallen off they will be red. As they start to get bleached their color changes. When the velvet starts to fall off the antler is red because the antler is made from blood. The antler is the blood that has hardened. In fact, the core of the antler is still bloody when the velvet starts to fall off, at least close to the base. Elder Noah Pugatatok of Agwolak, cited in Tuktu, Caribou, 2002, Canada's Polar Life. According to the Agwolak Oral History Project, IOHP, caribou antlers provided the Inuit with a myriad of implements, from snow knives and shovels to drying racks and seal hunting tools. A complex set of terms describes each part of the antler and relates it to its various uses. 130. Currently, the larger racks of antlers are used by Inuit and Inuit art as materials for carving. Iqaluit-based Jacopasiopakak's 1989 carving, entitled Nunali, which means place where people live, and which is part of the permanent collection of the National Gallery of Canada, includes a massive set of caribou antlers on which she has intricately carved the miniaturized world of the Inuit where Arctic birds, caribou, polar bears, seals, and whales are interspersed with human activities of fishing, hunting, cleaning skins, stretching boots, and traveling by dog sled and kayak, from the base of the antlers to the tip of each branch. 137. Pelt. The color of the fur varies considerably, both between individuals and depending on season and species. Northern populations, which usually are relatively small, are whiter, while southern populations, which typically are relatively large, are darker. This can be seen while in North America, where the northernmost subspecies, the prairie caribou, is the whitest and smallest subspecies of the continent, while the Selkirk Mountains caribou, southern mountain population DU9, 124, is the darkest and nearly the largest, 119, only exceeded in size by Osborne's caribou, northern mountain population DU7, 124. The coat has 2 layers of fur, a dense woolly undercoat and a longer-haired overcoat consisting of hollow, hair-filled hairs. 138. Fur is the primary insulation factor that allows reindeer to regulate their core body temperature in relation to their environment, the thermogradient, even if the temperature rises to 38 degrees C, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. 140. In 1913, Dugmore noted how the woodland caribou swims so high out of the water, unlike any other mammal, because their hollow, air-filled, quill-like hair acts as a supporting life jacket. 141. A darker belly color may be caused by 2 mutations of NC1R. They appear to be more common in domestic reindeer herds. 142. Heat exchange. Blood moving into the legs is cooled by blood returning to the body in a countercurrent heat exchange, CCHE, a highly efficient means of minimizing heat loss through the skin's surface. In the CCHE mechanism, in cold weather, blood vessels are closely knotted and intertwined with arteries to the skin and appendages that carry warm blood, with veins returning to the body that carry cold blood, causing the warm arterial blood to exchange heat with the cold venous blood. In this way, their legs, for example, are kept cool, maintaining the core body temperature nearly 30 degrees Celsius 54 degrees Fahrenheit higher, with less heat lost to the environment. Heat is thus recycled instead of being dissipated. The heart does not have to pump blood as rapidly in order to maintain a constant body core temperature and thus metabolic rate. CCHE is present in animals like reindeer, fox, and moose living in extreme conditions of cold or hot weather as a mechanism for retaining the heat in, or out of, the body. These are countercurrent exchange systems with the same fluid, usually blood, in a circuit, used for both directions of flow. 143. Reindeer have specialized countercurrent vascular heat exchange in their nasal passages. Temperature gradient along the nasal mucosa is under physiological control. Incoming cold air is warmed by body heat before entering the lungs, and water is condensed from the expired air and captured before the reindeer's breath is exhaled, then used to moisten dry incoming air and possibly be absorbed into the blood through the mucous membranes. 144. Like moose, terrible have specialized noses featuring nasal turbinate bones that dramatically increase the surface area within the nostrils. The knees of many species and subspecies of reindeer are adapted to produce a clicking sound as they walk. 150. The sounds originate in the tendons of the knees and may be audible from several hundred meters away. The frequency of the knee clicks is one of a range of signals that establish relative positions on a dominance scale among reindeer. Specifically, loud knee clicking is discovered to be an honest signal of body size, providing an exceptional example of the potential for non-vocal acoustic communication in mammals. 150. The clicking sound made by reindeer as they walk is caused by small tendons slipping over bone protuberances, sesamoid bones, in their feet. 151. 152. The sound is made when a reindeer is walking or running, occurring when the full weight of the foot is on the ground or just after it is relieved of the weight. A study by researchers from University College London in 2011 revealed that reindeer can see light with wavelengths as short as 320 nanometers, i.e. in the ultraviolet range, considerably below the human threshold of 400 nanometers. It is thought that this ability helps them to survive in the Arctic, because many objects that blend into the landscape in light visible to humans, such as urine and fur, produce sharp contrasts in ultraviolet. 153. It has been proposed that UV flashes on power lines are responsible for reindeer avoiding power lines because, in darkness, these animals see power lines not as dim, passive structures but, rather, as lines of flickering light stretching across the terrain. Reindeer have developed adaptations for optimal metabolic efficiency during warm months as well as for during cold months. 157. The body composition of reindeer varies highly with the seasons. Of particular interest is the body composition and diet of breeding and non-breeding females between the seasons. Breeding females have more body mass than non-breeding females between the months of March and September, with a difference of around 10 kilograms, 22 pounds, more than non-breeding females. From November to December, non-breeding females have more body mass than breeding females, as non-breeding females are able to focus their energies towards storage during colder months rather than lactation and reproduction. Body masses of both breeding and non-breeding females peaks in September. During the months of March through April, breeding females have more fat mass than the non-breeding females, with a difference of almost 3 kilograms, 6.6 pounds. After this, however, non-breeding females on average have a higher body fat mass than do breeding females. The environmental variations play a large part in reindeer nutrition, as winter nutrition is crucial to adult and neonatal survival rates. 159. Lichens are a staple during the winter months as they are a readily available food source, which reduces the reliance on stored body reserves. 158. Lichens are a crucial part of the reindeer diet. However, they are less prevalent in the diet of pregnant reindeer compared to non-pregnant individuals due to lichens' low nutritional value. Although lichens are high in carbohydrates, they are lacking in essential proteins that vascular plants provide. The amount of lichen in a diet decreases in latitude, which results in nutritional stress being higher in areas with low lichen abundance. In a study of seasonal light-dark cycles on sleep patterns of female reindeer, researchers performed non-invasive electroencephalography (EEG) on reindeer kept in a stable at the UiT, the Arctic University of Norway. The EEG recordings showed that 1. The more time reindeer spend ruminating, the less time they spend in non-rapid eye movement sleep (NREM sleep), and 2. Reindeer's brainwaves during rumination resemble the brainwaves present during NREM sleep. These results suggest that, by reducing the time requirement for NREM sleep, reindeer are able to spend more time feeding during the summer months, when food is abundant. Further information, Russe, Mammalian Reproduction, Section Cervidae. Reindeer mate in late September to early November, and the gestation period is about 228 to 234 days. 163. During the mating season, bulls battle for access to cows. Two bulls will lock each other's antlers together and try to push each other away. The most dominant bulls can collect as many as 15 to 20 cows to mate with. A bull will stop eating during this time and lose much of his body fat reserves. To calve, females travel to isolated, relatively predator-free areas such as islands in lakes, peatlands, lake shores, or tundra. 132. As females select the habitat for the birth of their calves, they are warier than males. Debmore noted that, in their seasonal migrations, the herd follows a female for that reason. 141. Newborns weigh on average 6 kilograms, 13 pounds. In May or June, the calves are born. 163. After 45 days, the calves are able to graze and forage, but continue suckling until the following autumn when they become independent from their mothers. Bulls live 4 years less than the cows, whose maximum longevity is about 17 years. Cows with a normal body size and who have had sufficient summer nutrition can begin breeding anytime between the ages of 1 and 3 years. 163. When a cow has undergone nutritional stress, it is possible for her to not reproduce for the year. 165. Dominant bulls, those with larger body size and antler racks, inseminate more than one cow a season. Some populations of North American caribou, for example, many herds in the barren ground caribou subspecies and some woodland caribou in Undava and northern Labrador, migrate the farthest of any terrestrial mammal, traveling up to 5,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles, a year, and covering 1 million square kilometers, 400,000 square miles. 167. Other North American populations, the boreal woodland caribou for example, are largely sedentary. 168. The European populations are known to have shorter migrations. Island populations, such as the Novaya Zemlya and Svalbard reindeer and the prairie caribou, make local movements both within and among islands. Migrating reindeer can be negatively affected by parasite loads. Severely infected individuals are weak and probably have shortened lifespans, but parasite levels vary between populations. Infections create an effect known as culling. Infected migrating animals are less likely to complete the migration. 169. Normally traveling about 19 to 55 kilometers, 12 to 34 miles, a day while migrating, the caribou can run at speeds of 60 to 80 kilometers per hour, 37 to 50 miles per hour. 2. Young calves can already outrun an Olympic sprinter when only 1 day old. 170. During the spring migration, smaller herds will group together to form larger herds of 50,000 to 500,000 animals, but during autumn migrations, the groups become smaller and the reindeer begin to mate. During winter, reindeer travel to forested areas to forage under the snow. By spring, groups leave their winter grounds to go to the calving grounds. A reindeer can swim easily and quickly, normally at about 6.5 kilometers per hour, 4.0 miles per hour, but, if necessary, at 10 kilometers per hour, 6.2 miles per hour, and migrating herds will not hesitate to swim across a large lake or broad river. 2. The barren ground caribou form large herds and undertake lengthy seasonal migrations from winter feeding grounds in taiga to spring calving grounds and summer range in the tundra. The migrations of the porcupine herd of barren ground caribou are among the longest of any mammal. 10. Greenland caribou, found in southwestern Greenland, are mixed migrators, and many individuals do not migrate. Those that do migrate less than 60 km, 171, unlike the individual tending mating system, aggregated rutting, synchronized calving and aggregated post-calving of barren ground caribou, Greenland caribou have a harem defense mating system and dispersed calving and they do not aggregate. 94. Although most wild tundra reindeer migrate between their winter range in taiga and summer range in tundra, some ecotypes or herds are more or less sedentary. Novaya Zemlya reindeer, R.T. Personi, formerly wintered on the mainland and migrated across the ice to the islands for summer, but only a few now migrate. 24. Finnish forest reindeer, R.T. Phoenicus, were formerly distributed in most of the coniferous forest zones south of the tree line, including some mountains, but are now spottily distributed within this zone. Originally, the reindeer was found in Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, Greenland, Russia, Mongolia, and northern China north of the 50th latitude. In North America, it was found in Canada, Alaska, and the northern contiguous United States from Maine to Washington. In the 19th century, it was still present in southern Idaho. 2. Even in historical times, it probably occurred naturally in Ireland, and it is believed to have lived in Scotland until the 12th century, when the last reindeer were hunted in Orkney, 173. During the late Pleistocene epoch, reindeer occurred further south in North America, such as in Nevada, Tennessee, and Alabama, 174, and as far south as Spain in Europe, 166, 175, though their range retreated northwards during the terminal Pleistocene. Reindeer returned to northern Europe during the Younger Dryas, 176. Today, wild reindeer have disappeared from these areas, especially from the southern parts, where it vanished almost everywhere. Large populations of wild reindeer are still found in Norway, Finland, Siberia, Greenland, Alaska, and Canada. According to Grubb, 2005, reindeer is circumboreal in the tundra and taiga, from Svalbard, Norway, Finland, Russia, Alaska, USA, and Canada, including most Arctic islands, and Greenland, south to northern Mongolia, China, Inner Mongolia, 177, Sakhalin Island, and USA, northern Idaho and Great Lakes region. Reindeer were introduced to, and are feral in, Iceland, Kerguelen Islands, South Georgia Island, Pribilof Islands, St. Matthew Island, Wink with a Frown 7. A free-ranging semi-domesticated herd is also present in Scotland, 178. There is strong regional variation in reindeer herd size. There are large population differences among individual herds, and the size of individual herds has varied greatly since 1970. The largest of all herds, in Taimyr, Russia, has varied between 400,000 and 1 million. The second largest herd, at the George River in Canada, has varied between 28,000 and 385,000. While reindeer is a widespread and numerous genus in the northern Halarctic, being present in both tundra and taiga, boreal forest, 166, by 2013, many herds had unusually low numbers, and their winter ranges in particular were smaller than they used to be. 18. Caribou and reindeer numbers have fluctuated historically, but many herds are in decline across their range. 179. This global decline is linked to climate change for northern migratory herds and industrial disturbance of habitat for non-migratory herds. 180. Barren round caribou are susceptible to the effects of climate change due to a mismatch in the phenological process between the availability of food during the calving period, 160, 181, 182. In November 2016, it was reported that more than 81,000 reindeer in Russia had died as a result of climate change. Longer autumns, leading to increased amounts of freezing rain, created a few inches of ice over lichen, causing many reindeer to starve to death. 183. Diet. 2 caribou licking salt from a roadway in British Columbia. Reindeer are ruminants, having a 4-chambered stomach. They mainly eat lichens in winter, especially reindeer lichen, Cladonia rangiferina. They are the only large mammal able to metabolize lichen. 184. Many lichens synthesize toxic phenolic compounds, such as oxalic acid, that protect them from UV radiation and herbivory. 185. Reindeer can eat lichen because their rumen contains a reindeer-specific bacterium called Eubacterium rangiferina. 186. This bacterium detoxifies oxalic acid and may use it as an energy source. Unlike other bacteria present in the rumen, E. rangiferina can grow in the presence of oxalic acid and rapidly degrades oxalic acid in reindeer stomachs. 186. They are also the only animals, except for some gastropods, in which the enzyme mycinase, which breaks down lichen into glucose, has been found. 187. Reindeer also eat the leaves of willows and birches, as well as sedges and grasses. especially in the warmer months. Reindeer are osteophagous. They are known to gnaw and partly consume shed antlers as a dietary supplement and in some extreme cases will cannibalize each other's antlers before shedding. 188. There is also some evidence to suggest that on occasion, especially in the spring when they are nutritionally stressed, 189, they will feed on small rodents, such as lemmings, 190, fish, such as the Arctic char, Salvelinus alpinus, and bird eggs. 191, reindeer herded by the Chukchis have been known to devour mushrooms enthusiastically in late summer. Bolton eagles prey on calves and are the most prolific hunter on the calving grounds. 196, wolverines will take newborn calves or birth-in cows, as well as, less commonly, infirm adults. Brown bears and polar bears prey on reindeer of all ages but, like wolverines, are most likely to attack weaker animals, such as calves and sick reindeer, since healthy adult reindeer can usually outpace a bear. The gray wolf is the most effective natural predator of adult reindeer and sometimes takes large numbers, especially during the winter. Some gray wolf packs, as well as individual grizzly bears in Canada, may follow and live off of a particular reindeer herd year-round. 109, 197. In 2020, scientists on Svalbard witnessed, and were able to film for the first time, a polar bear attack reindeer, driving one into the ocean, with a polar bear caught up with and killed it. 198. The same bear successfully repeated this hunting technique the next day. On Svalbard, reindeer remains account for 27.3% in polar bear scats, suggesting that they may be a significant part of the polar bear's diet in that area. 199. Additionally, as carrion, reindeer may be scavenged opportunistically by red and Arctic foxes, various species of eagles, hawks and falcons, and common ravens. Blood-sucking insects, such as mosquitoes, black flies, and especially the reindeer warble fly or reindeer botfly, Hyperderma tarandi, and the reindeer nose botfly, Cephaninia tromp, 180, 200, are a plague to reindeer during the summer and can cause enough stress to inhibit feeding and calving behaviors. 201, an adult reindeer will lose perhaps about 1 owl, 0.22 imp gal, 0.26 US gal, of blood to biting insects for every week it spends in the tundra. 170, the population numbers of some of these predators is influenced by the migration of reindeer. Citation needed. Tormenting insects keep caribou on the move, searching for windy areas like hilltops and mountain ridges, rock reefs, lakeshore and forest openings, or snow patches that offer respite from the buzzing horde. Gathering in large herds is another strategy that caribou use to block insects. 202. Reindeer are good swimmers and, in one case, the entire body of a reindeer was found in the stomach of a Greenland shark, Somniosus microcephalus, a species found in the far North Atlantic. 203. Other threats. White-tailed deer, Otocoileus virginianus, commonly carry meningeal worm or brainworm, Parelophostrongylus tenuis, a nematode parasite that causes reindeer, moose, alces, elk, Cervus canadensis, and mule deer, Otocoileus humianus, to develop fatal neurological symptoms. 204, 205, 206, which include a loss of fear of humans. White-tailed deer that carry this worm are partially immune to it. 148. Changes in climate and habitat beginning in the 20th century have expanded range overlap between white-tailed deer and caribou, increasing the frequency of infection within the reindeer population. This increase in infection is a concern for wildlife managers. Human activities, such as clear-cutting forestry practices, forest fires, and the clearing for agriculture, roadways, railways, and power lines favor the conversion of habitats into the preferred habitat of the white-tailed deer, open forest interspersed with meadows, clearings, grasslands, and riparian flatlands. 148. Towards the end of the Soviet Union, there was increasingly open admission from the Soviet government that reindeer numbers were being negatively affected by human activity, and that this must be remediated especially by supporting reindeer breeding by native herders. 207. The status of the Dolphin Union herd was upgraded to endangered in 2017. 210. In NWT, Dolphin Union caribou were listed as special concern under the NWT Species at Risk (NWT) Act, 2013. Both the Selkirk Mountains caribou, Southern Mountain Population DU9, and the Rocky Mountain caribou, Central Mountain Population DU8, are classified as endangered in Canada in regions such as southeastern British Columbia at the Canada-United States border, along the Columbia and Kootenay rivers and around Kootenay Lake. Rocky Mountain caribou are extirpated from Banff National Park, 211, but a small population remains in Jasper National Park and in mountain ranges to the northwest into British Columbia. Montane caribou are now considered extirpated in the contiguous United States, including Washington and Idaho. Osborne's caribou, Northern Mountain Population DU7, is classified as threatened in Canada. In Eurasia, the Sakhalin reindeer is extinct and has been replaced by domestic reindeer, and reindeer on most of the Novaya Zemlya Islands have also been replaced by domestic reindeer, although some wild reindeer still persist on the northern islands. 24. Many Siberian tundra reindeer herds have declined, some dangerously, but the Taimyr herd remains strong, and in total about 940,000 wild Siberian tundra reindeer were estimated in 2010. 17. There is strong regional variation in rangifer herd size. By 2013, many caribou herds in North America had unusually low numbers, and their winter ranges in particular were smaller than they used to be. 209. Caribou numbers have fluctuated historically, but many herds are in decline across their range. 179. There are many factors contributing to the decline in numbers. 180. Boreal woodland caribou. Ongoing human development of their habitat has caused populations of boreal woodland caribou to disappear from their original southern range. In particular, boreal woodland caribou were extirpated in many areas of eastern North America in the beginning of the 20th century. Professor Marco Musiani of the University of Calgary said in a statement that the woodland caribou is already an endangered subspecies in southern Canada and the United States. The warming of the planet means the disappearance of their critical habitat in these regions. Caribou need undisturbed lichen-rich environments, and these types of habitats are disappearing. 212. Boreal woodland caribou were designated as threatened in 2002 by the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada, COSUC. 35. Environment Canada reported in 2011 that there were approximately 34,000 boreal woodland caribou in 51 ranges remaining in Canada. Environment Canada, 2011b. 36. According to Geist, the woodland caribou is highly endangered throughout its distribution right into Ontario. 7. In 2002, the Atlantic Daspasy population DU11 of the boreal woodland caribou was designated as endangered by COSUC. The small isolated population of 200 animals was at risk from predation and habitat loss. Arctic peoples have depended on caribou for food, clothing, and shelter. European prehistoric cave paintings represent both tundra and forest forms, the latter either the Finnish forest reindeer or the narrow-nosed reindeer, and eastern Siberia forest form. 14. Canadian examples include the caribou Inuit, the inland-dwelling Inuit of the Kavalak region in northern Canada, the Caribou clan in the Yukon, the Inupia, the Inovula, the Han, the northern Techum, and the Gwich'in, who followed the porcupine caribou herd for millennia. Hunting wild reindeer and herding of semi-domesticated reindeer are important to several Arctic and subarctic peoples such as the Dalar for meat, hides, da, antlers, milk, RU, and transportation. 6. The reindeer has an important economic role for all circumpolar peoples, including the Sami, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Finns, and the northwestern Russians in Europe, the Nenets, the Khanty, the Evenki, the Yukagirs, the Chukchi and the Koryaks in Asia and the Inuit in North America. It is believed that domestication started between the Bronze and Iron Ages. Siberian reindeer owners also use the reindeer to ride on. Siberian reindeer are larger than their Scandinavian relatives. For breeders, a single owner may own hundreds or even thousands of animals. The numbers of Russian and Scandinavian reindeer herders have been drastically reduced since 1990. The sale of fur and meat is an important source of income. Reindeer were introduced into Alaska near the end of the 19th century. They interbred with the native caribou subspecies there. Reindeer herders on the Seward Peninsula have experienced significant losses to their herds from animals, such as wolves, following the wild caribou during their migrations. Citation needed. Reindeer meat is popular in the Scandinavian countries. Reindeer meatballs are sold canned. Sautéed reindeer is the best-known dish in Sápmi. In Alaska and Finland, reindeer sausage is sold in supermarkets and grocery stores. Reindeer meat is very tender and lean. It can be prepared fresh, but also dried, salted, and hot and cold smoked. In addition to meat, almost all of the internal organs of reindeer can be eaten, some being traditional dishes. 218. Furthermore, Lapinpuran liha, fresh reindeer meat completely produced and packed in Finnish Lapland, is protected in Europe with PDO classification. 219. 220. Reindeer antlers are powdered and sold as an aphrodisiac, or as a nutritional or medicinal supplement, to Asian markets. The blood of the caribou was supposedly mixed with alcohol as drink by hunters and lovers in colonial Quebec to counter the cold. This drink is now enjoyed without the blood as a wine and whiskey drink known as caribou. 221. 222. Elder Chief of Kayakok and Chair for the Western Arctic Caribou Herd Working Group Benedict Jones, or Kudu Dinalo, represents the Middle Yukon River, Alaska. His grandmother was a member of the Caribou clan, who traveled with the caribou as a means to survive. In 1939, they were living their traditional lifestyle at one of their hunting camps in Kayakok near the location of what is now the Kayakok National Wildlife Refuge. His grandmother made a pair of new mukluks in one day. Kudo Dinalo recounted a story told by an elder, who worked on the steamboats during the gold rush days out on the Yukon. In late August, the caribou migrated from the Alaska Range up north to Huslia, Kayakok, and the Tanana area. One year when the steamboat was unable to continue, they ran into a caribou herd estimated to number 1 million animals, migrating across the Yukon. They tied up for 7 days waiting for the caribou to cross. They ran out of wood for the steamboats, and had to go back down 40 miles to the wood pile to pick up some more wood. On the 10th day, they came back and they said there was still caribou going across the river night and day. 224. The Gwich'in, an indigenous people of northwestern Canada and northeastern Alaska, have been dependent on the international migratory porcupine caribou herd for millennia. 225. 142 to them, caribou, Thadzai, is the cultural symbol and a keystone subsistence species of the Gwich'in, just as the American buffalo is to the Plains Native Americans. 226. Innovative language revitalization projects are underway to document the language and to enhance the writing and translation skills of younger Gwich'in speakers. In one project, lead research associate and fluent speaker Gwich'in elder Kenneth Frank works with linguists who include young Gwich'in speakers affiliated with the Alaska Native Language Center at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks to document traditional knowledge of caribou anatomy. The main goal of the research was to elicit not only what the Gwich'in know about caribou anatomy, but how they see caribou and what they say and believe about caribou that defines themselves, their dietary and nutritional needs, and their subsistence way of life. 226. Elders have identified at least 150 descriptive Gwich'in names for all of the bones, organs, and tissues associated with the caribou's anatomy are not just descriptive Gwich'in names for all of the body parts, including bones, organs, and tissues, but also an encyclopedia of stories, songs, games, toys, ceremonies, traditional tools, skin clothing, personal names and surnames, and a highly developed ethnic cuisine. 226. In the 1980s, Gwich'in traditional management practices were established to protect the porcupine caribou, upon which the Gwich'in depend. They codified traditional principles of caribou management into tribal law, which include limits on the harvest of caribou and procedures to be followed in processing and transporting caribou meat, and limits on the number of caribou to be taken per hunting trip. 227. The reindeer is the only successfully semi-domesticated deer on a large scale in the world. Reindeer in northern Fennoscandia, northern Norway, Sweden, and Finland, as well in the Kola Peninsula and Yakutia in Russia, are mostly semi-domesticated reindeer, earmarked by their owners. Some reindeer in the area are truly domesticated, mostly used as draft animals, nowadays commonly for tourist entertainment and races, traditionally important for the nomadic Sami. Domestic reindeer have also been used for milk, e.g., in Norway. DNA analysis indicates that reindeer were independently domesticated at least twice, in Fennoscandia and western Russia, and possibly also eastern Russia. 234. Reindeer have been herded for centuries by several Arctic and subarctic peoples, including the Sami, the Nenets, and the Yakuts. They are raised for their meat, hides, and antlers and, to a lesser extent, for milk and transportation. Reindeer are not considered fully domesticated, as they generally roam free on pasture grounds. In traditional nomadic herding, reindeer herders migrate with their herds between coastal and inland areas according to an annual migration route, and herds are routinely tended. However, reindeer were not bred in captivity, though they were tamed for milking as well as for use as draft animals or beasts of burden. Millay, 1915, 97, for example, shows a photograph, plate LXXX, of an Okhotsk reindeer, saddled for riding, the rider standing behind it, beside an officer astride a steppe pony that is only slightly larger. Domestic reindeer are shorter-legged and heavier than their wild counterparts. Citation needed. In Scandinavia, management of reindeer herds is primarily conducted through Sida, a traditional Sami form of cooperative association. 235. Reindeer hides for sale in Sitka, Alaska. The use of reindeer as semi-domesticated livestock in Alaska was introduced in the late 19th century by the United States Revenue Cutter Service, with assistance from Sheldon Jackson, as a means of providing a livelihood for Alaska natives. 237. Reindeer were imported first from Siberia and later also from Norway. A regular mail run in Wales, Alaska, used a sleigh drawn by reindeer. 238. In Alaska, Reindeer herders use satellite telemetry to track their herds, using online maps and databases to chart the herd's progress. Citation needed. Domestic reindeer are mostly found in northern Fennoscandia and the Russian north, with a herd of approximately 150 to 170 reindeer living around the Cairngorms region in Scotland. The last remaining wild tundra reindeer in Europe are found in portions of southern Norway. 239. The International Center for Reindeer Husbandry, ICR, a circumpolar organization, was established in 2005 by the Norwegian government. ICR represents over 20 indigenous reindeer peoples and about 100,000 reindeer herders in 9 different national states. 240. In Finland, there are about 6,000 reindeer herders, most of whom keep small herds of less than 50 reindeer to raise additional income. With 185,000 reindeer, as of 2001, the industry produces 2,000 metric tons, 2,200 short tons, of reindeer meat and generates €35 million annually. 70% of the meat is sold to slaughterhouses. Reindeer herders are eligible for national and EU agricultural subsidies, which constituted 15% of their income. Reindeer herding is of central importance for the local economies of small communities in sparsely populated rural Sápmi. 241. Currently, many reindeer herders are heavily dependent on diesel fuel to provide for electric generators and snowmobile transportation, although solar photovoltaic systems can be used to reduce diesel dependency.